Hello and welcome to the MST in English Language assessment. A reminder that this session is being recorded and will be shared on the ICE YouTube channel. And a recording will be sent to everyone who has registered for the event after the session. My name is Jonathan Lippman and I'm the Head of Academic Centre Administration at the University of Cambridge Institute of Continuing Education, also known as ICE. With me today, I'm delighted to have Dr. James Underwood, Course Director for this MST, as well as representatives from our key partners on the course, Professor Henrietta Hendricks from the Faculty of Modern and Medieval Languages and Linguistics, and Dr. Nick Glasson from Cambridge University Press and Assessment. You'll be hearing from all of them shortly, as well as from our current students, Jason and Lena. There will be an opportunity for you to ask any questions you have at the end of the session, but please feel free to submit your questions at any point in the session today using the Q&A function. Could I have the next slide, please? So today's MST in English Language Assessment session is part of our broader MST Open Week. As well as live sessions such as this one, we also have additional video resources on our website covering things such as funding options, how to apply, student support, and interview preparation. You might also like to sign up for our Meet the Colleges event on Thursday, the 14th of November this week at 7:30 p.m. Don't worry if you miss any of the sessions. You can watch recordings back, which we'll be posting on our website. Next slide, please. So the MST in English Language Assessment is very much a Cambridge partnership with expertise drawn from key partners in Cambridge University Press and Assessment, Cambridge Language Sciences as part of the Modern and Medieval Languages and Linguistics faculty, as well as the Institute of Continuing Education. ICE itself was established over 150 years ago and was one of the first university-led education providers in the world. We act as the admitting body for all MST courses within the University of Cambridge. So I'll hand over now to Dr. James Underwood, Course Director for the MST in English Language Assessment.
Hi, hello, and it's good to be here and good to talk to you. So I'm the Course Director for this particular degree, the MST in English Language Assessment. My own background is I was a former teacher, including teaching English to students who had English as a second language and teaching English within the mainstream school sector, and a former school principal. And my research area and what I bring to this degree in terms of a specific field is an interest in student voice and practitioner research. Practitioner research, in a nutshell, is teachers researching teaching and assessors researching assessment and what that means for them. So that's who I am, and I work for ICE. If you picture that picture you just saw before of the three key partners, that was the partner at the top, and we coordinate this degree, and I'm likely to be your main point of contact throughout the degree, and I would be your tutor for the first year of the degree until you start your thesis. I'm going to talk for quite a lot of this presentation in a few moments, so I'm going to pass on to other key partners now, and I'm going to pass, so if we go to the next slide, please, and I introduce Henrietta, who will speak about Cambridge Language Sciences.
Hello, welcome to this presentation. And yes, I'll talk a bit about Cambridge Language Sciences and how our work as linguists fits in there. So the Cambridge Language Sciences came about 12, 15 years ago, when we realized in this university that a lot of people who are interested in language are distributed across all the different schools and faculties and departments. And actually that meant that we were sometimes reinventing the wheel from one department to the other, or not taking into account information that was desperately thought of importance to understand language learning, language use, language health, etc., etc. So since then, we've brought together everyone who's interested in language, be that language production, language learning, etc., language loss, under one big umbrella, and that's called the Cambridge Language Sciences. And so it includes people who work on technologies related to language, including NLPs and AI technology, etc. It includes people who are interested in health issues and how that may impact your language, or how language may impact health. It includes people who look at the role of language in society, and it includes people who look at language education. And so a big group of us are in the Faculty of Modern and Medieval Languages and Linguistics in the Linguistics department. And some of those will be contributing to your course because they all have backgrounds in language acquisition and language learning and teaching. And I think that gives you a bit of a background of where this course sits. So I'll hand back to James and invite the next speaker.
If we move to the next slide, please. And Nick Glasson, Dr. Nick Glasson, if you could join us, please.
Hello, I'm Nick Glasson. So just to explain, I'm a senior research manager in the research team, which is part of the English department of Cambridge University Press and Assessment. You've probably heard of Cambridge University Press and Assessment. We produce a number of quite well-known exams, and that's one of the unique features of this Master of Studies, that obviously we bring the sort of practical hands-on elements to the assessment side of things. That you can see here, obviously, there's a list of the exams that you may or may not have heard of. So, for example, the most famous one is probably IELTS. We have a very long history. C2 proficiency is still an active live exam, and that has been going since 1913. It's obviously undergone a few changes in that time. And that's what that sort of last bullet there gets to, really, which is that for over 100 years, we've been developing tests, we've been monitoring tests, and we've been revising them and analyzing them. So when it comes to the sort of optimal mix of research and linguistics expertise and also the practicalities of assessment, we really do have quite a lot of knowledge in that area. I would add to that as well, as a researcher, our work is not confined only to the main products that we serve. We obviously produce studies in language testing, research notes. We do other publications in journals and chapters and books and things, as well as our, ever-present, presence at conferences and things like that. So very much plugged into the field, but also at the same time plugged into the network of centres and schools that we serve. You can see there the last bullet is our sort of mission statement, which is that we help people learn English and prove their skills to the world. I would add as well there that although that's largely to do with language assessment, improving your language skills for very important things in many cases like immigration and stuff like that, but also something that we are obviously involved in is teacher education and learning contexts. And increasingly, we are always looking at sort of emerging technology, the ethical dimensions of testing, the development of new products, and the sort of elaboration and exploration of new testing constructs as well. So it's not just about the products, but that's obviously a very important part of it. And there's a really good mix, I think, that CUPA brings in terms of practical expertise and a sort of research background as well. James, I think that's about as much summary as I can give.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Nick. That's great. So we've introduced the three main partners now. I'll be talking for a few slides, by the way, now. So the three main partners, Cambridge Language Sciences, who bring that deep expertise in linguistics, Cambridge University Press and Assessment, who I think you'll all know as the main assessment or the most significant assessment body historically in assessing English language, and ICE, who for 150 years have been managing degrees for professionals and degrees for people like you. There is actually a fourth partner there, and this is the case for all full degrees at the University of Cambridge, in that you will have a college. We don't use the word, we don't include them in that academic aspect of the partnership, but they are vital to your life in the college, in the university. You'll all be a member of either Fitzwilliam College or Homerton College, and a college provides you with pastoral support. You will have a pastoral tutor who will be there as a point of contact and a point of advice for any partner issues, any pastoral issues. They're an interdisciplinary centre in that students from across different degrees, across the universities, belong to the college, and there are many opportunities from informal events such as dinners to more formal events like college conferences and college seminars to interact on an interdisciplinary level. They're also a centre for all sorts of things, from sport to culture, and you are full members of those colleges if you are offered and accept a place on this degree. Next slide, please. So to go to the programme, this is an attempt to sum up an intense, fascinating, but complex programme in just 6 bullet points. But the heart of it is these 6 things. There will be aspects of understanding speech and language, of linguistics, and this will be led by Cambridge Language Sciences and the people who work within that. And it is important that you come here prepared to engage with that and understand that. Not everyone who joins this degree is a linguist, but linguistics and understanding speech and language are at the heart of this degree. We then move to language learning in instructed context, what it means to teach and learn language. We then look at the principles of assessment and the use of technology in assessment, which is obviously a dynamic and fast-moving field, including the use of AI. And we also look at research methods in preparation for a very significant part of this course, which is the opportunity to do a piece of original research, your dissertation, your thesis. And we'll also look throughout critically at assessment tools and how they interact with those 4 aspects above. So if we move to the next slide, please. So if we take that core of what the course is, this is how it breaks down into modules. So there's 6 modules plus a dissertation on this degree. The first module, understanding speech and language and how they are learned, really relates to that first point on the slide above. An understanding of linguistics that is high level will be made accessible to you who are not linguists by background, but will be challenging. But it's a very rewarding part of the course, but be prepared to engage in new dimensions academically if you're not coming from a linguistics background. Then language learning in instructed context and the principles of assessment, the use of technology, and a critical view of assessment tools. The middle module in year 2 there, principles of research, is the only unassessed module, but it links directly to the dissertation and gives you the tools and the skills to be able to construct a piece of original research via your dissertation. By the way, while I'm talking, please add questions into the Q&A. I won't respond to them till the end, but if we build a bank, we can have a good conversation there. Okay, if you move to the next slide, please. So the approach to learning is distinct to the MSTs at the Institute of Continuing Education. And we have been running degrees, as was said at the beginning, for professionals for 150 years. The needs of professionals are distinct, and your working patterns and your hours are distinct. So our approach to this degree is a blended learning approach with a mix of online and face-to-face teaching from experts across the disciplines that we've just spoken about. Face-to-face teaching is carried out during two-week residential sessions in Cambridge. Each of them are at the start of the academic year, so they effectively present some of the key ideas, concepts, and theories that you'll then be working on throughout the academic year. Those 2-week residentials you must attend, and they're a fundamental part of the course. There's also online sessions throughout the year. We've put here the taught online sessions in the Lent and Easter term, and that's true that there is delivery of new materials online in the Lent and Easter terms. But it is also the case that there are online seminars, online tutorials in the first year with me, in the second year with your supervisor, in fact, throughout the year. So there is considerable online support, but there are also sessions and meetings you're expected to attend. If we move to the next slide, please. In terms of assessment, it is a largely essay-based model. So there are 4 modules that are assessed by essays. These essays are quite flexibly structured and give you a chance to explore and reflect on your context in several cases, particularly, for example, in the case of Module 3. But they will also take you into new academic disciplines and new expertise if you're coming out from other backgrounds other than linguistics. And most of our students do come from a range and a wide variety of backgrounds. There's also a portfolio of tasks where you build up ideas and evidence related to using technology in language assessment in year 2. And there is also the dissertation. The dissertation is 50% of the weighting of this degree and is a 15,000 to 18,000 word piece of original research. It may be practitioner research, teachers researching their own space, assessors researching their own space, or it may be other forms of research. But whatever it is, the emphasis will be on originality and making it professionally relevant for you. If we move to the next slide, please. The time commitment. As you are professionals, we understand that most people on this course are working full-time in education or assessment in some dimension. Some are working full-time in other professions, but have an interest in assessment, in English language assessment, or one kind or another. The 6 to 8 hours per week is a rough guide. We understand it's challenging to maintain a momentum like that over a full 2 years. There will be times when work is putting great pressure on you and it's not possible to give that time commitment. There will be others when essays are approaching where you may be giving significantly more than that as a time commitment. But that is a rough rule, a rough guideline of how much work per week in terms of reading, writing would be expected of you. The 2-week residential is strongly structured and is based on a 40-hour week that runs from 9 to 4:30 on each given day, and with breaks and lunch break, etc. Then there are monthly 1-hour online seminars. There's actually slightly more than that. I added a few more last year for specific reasons, but roughly monthly online seminars. 1-to-1, 2 1-to-1 meetings with me in your first year, and then when you start working on your thesis in your second year, regular 1-to-1 thesis supervisions with your supervisor. If we move to the next slide, please. So the people on this course, you've met some of them. You've met me, you've met Jonathan, you've met our colleagues from Cambridge Language Sciences and Cambridge University Press and Assessment, and you will meet many more experts in their field and deeply expert researchers, professionals and practitioners. But the most important community on this course is your fellow students. It is a fascinating community that you will belong to, a community of people deeply engaged in this highly important but highly specialist thing that we all do, which is looking at language assessment and language assessment from some dimension or some form. It's a wide range of professionals, including teachers, assessors, lecturers, translators, and others. It's a truly international community. You will gain insights from people across the world, and it's a powerful networking community. For the majority of students who take this degree is an endpoint in itself, and a very, very, very valid one. You have completed a master's, you've studied at postgraduate level, you've conducted independent research into this area of English language assessment, and the degree is used professionally to progress and develop further. For some of you, you might choose, and you might be able, if you gain a high grade, to progress to a PhD at the University of Cambridge or other universities. And on that note, I'll pass over to two of our students, our two current student representatives. Not every student on our degree has a doctorate, but I will introduce them as Dr. Jason Chan and Dr. Lena Wang, because both of these two came here having done other postgraduate study. Many of our students, this is their first master's, some it is their second master's, some are postdoctorate and changing direction, but it's illustrative of the high quality of students we get and the dynamic community that you will belong to. So I'll pass over, if Jason speaks first and Lena next, and I'll pass over to you now.
Thank you, James. So just a brief introduction of who I am. I'm Jason. I'm 47. I was born in Hong Kong. I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and I spent the last 20 years or so in Germany, where I teach and live. I've been an IELTS oral examiner and Cambridge Advanced English examiner for a number of years. And as James said, I do have a doctorate in education, and my reason for going back to do my second master's is precisely that I'm very interested professionally in English language assessment, and this is the only master's degree out there which focuses on this topic. And we are approaching the end of the first year, and it's been very busy, to say the least, with assignments and working and whatnot. However, if you haven't done this sort of online distance degree before, I think what I can say about it is that it's actually more flexible if you have to work full time. So you don't have to attend classes every week, and so you basically schedule your own time to do your work, which is actually a very, very big plus for somebody as a professional who wants to pursue another degree or online, right? And Lena is is another student rep. Both of us are, and both of us are based at Homerton. Homerton is our college. So, Lena?
Thanks, Jason. I'm Lena Wang. Like what Jason mentioned, we both come from Homerton College. And actually, nowadays, I'm based in Beijing, but I did my master's degree and my PhD in UK. So my previous major was purely from the engineering and mathematics background. And I choose to do my second master in Cambridge because, like what Jason said, before I choose this subject, I went through the internet, and this is the only one globally to do this kind of English assessment kind of research subject. So I'm quite fascinating of this subject. And like Jason said, it's nearly the end of first year. And in past the whole year, we obtained lots of great support from our Cambridge supporting team, especially from our course director, James. He usually organized like a monthly catch up with us, and there are lots of seminars as well. So I think this is a great opportunity. I mean, at least for me, to restart my starting career, as well as meet lots of fascinating people, and also starting this kind of, the most greatest university in the world. I think this is highly recommended and fantastic experience as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Jen,
Thank you very much. So if we, and Jason, thank you, Lena and Jason. If we move on to the next slide, please. So if after this you are interested in applying for the course, this simple diagram explains the next steps. If you go on our website, you'll find lots of details about the course and read through everything very carefully. Be prepared to ask questions, and we're happy to answer questions. On 2 slides time, I'll direct you to where those questions can be asked. As instructed, begin to, on the website, collect documents and references and prepare your application. Then you'll submit your application at the bottom, as this says, by Wednesday, the 30th of April, 2025, though you are welcome to submit earlier as well. We interview all candidates with a strong application. So we don't interview everyone who applies, but if your application is strong, we will interview you, and then an offer may be made. We're looking for evidence of interest in English language assessment. I'll tell you, perhaps that's easiest to explain what that does not mean. That does not mean you have to have a background in linguistics. That does not mean you have to be doing a specific profession, such as teacher, assessor, exam designer, etc. It means you should have a professional interest in developing your understanding in this area. And many of our credible candidates right now are working in universities, language schools, or in assessment in some form, and be prepared to write and expand on that in your application. We're looking for evidence again of relevant experience, something which says, yes, we feel that you're genuinely interested in this topic, in this broad field rather, and that you have, and that further development and understanding will benefit you. And we want evidence you can flourish at Cambridge, and that might be evidence from your professional lives, that might be evidence from previous academic achievements. Okay. Next slide, please. The fees for 2025 to 27 are there, and they can be paid in a variety of forms. An instalment plan is possible of 4 equal payments, for example. The first payment will be made before the course starts, and you cannot progress to year 2 without paying the fees for year 1. It's important to note this is a small specialist degree. No bursaries or scholarships are currently available. So it will be important for you to find a way and to look into how you can fund this. Next slide, please. This final slide directs you to where to make inquiries. I've said ask questions. The ICE enrolment team can support you by providing information, advice, and guidance at every stage. Selecting a course, suitability and requirements, the application process. There's ways to approach them there, including that QR card, the course inquiry form, and that email address. It may well be that they pass queries on to us as the academic team, but I would encourage you to be in touch with the enrolment team so they can have an overview of the questions that are being asked, and so that you are part of that central process at the ICE. That's me finished talking for now. If we move to, I think it is, if we move to the next slide, please, and if there are any questions in the Q&A box, I will try and pick them up. I can see that there is one there already. Very interesting. Okay, Jonathan, if I bring you in first, and if anyone else wants to indicate they want to help answer that question, and I may come in as well after, but I will bring Jonathan in first.
So the question we've received asks if you could please clarify the primary differences between this part-time master's in English language assessment versus an English language master's.
So I think this is, it's in the title, but I don't want to make that sort of it's more than that. So if you were going to do an English language masters. You are going to focus on the English language, linguistics, the nature of language, etc. There isn't going to be that pragmatic aspect of assessment and how we assess, which runs as a thread through the whole degree. Module 1 very much feels like an English language master's might, in that it's very much a linguistics module, but it's treated as a building block for understanding assessment further, rather than an endpoint in itself. It's also different from a master's in TESOL. Now, I know I'm inventing my own question here, but that's a question I'm very frequently asked by people. Why is it different? And the master's in TESOL will have teaching English as a second language, will have an emphasis on teaching practice, while the emphasis on this is assessment practice. It is a highly specialized master's English language assessment. It is the only master's covering this specific dimension in the world at present. There are masters in assessment, masters in English language, masters in English language teaching, but only this one on English language assessment. On the other hand, it is coming from a vast field. English language assessment, if one considers the IELTS, if one considers assessment for visa purposes, for universities, for the UK, for the USA, for schools, is an enormous, even if highly specialized field. So to summarize that back, it's not a master's in teaching English language. It's not a master's in English language specifically, theoretically, or looking at research in this area only. It's using an understanding of English language to build your and our as a community expertise at assessment. I can't see another question in the Q&A right now.
I've got another one, James, that's just come in, if I may. So this is a question about combining work and study. So the question is, I work full-time. Do you have any tips for combining working full-time and studying on a part-time master's, or this part-time master's? So I wonder if I might ask Lena and Jason if they could just talk to that. You know, what practical tips might you have for applicants who are, you know, maybe concerned about how they would balance work and study?
Yeah. Well, I have to be very honest. That you will have to make certain sacrifices in your lives. Because there's, you know, there are only so many hours that one gets to use. But I think setting deadlines is very important, which the course tutor also helps us to do. Reminders of when things are due. Just don't leave things till the last minute. I think it is absolutely doable. It's not something, I mean, it is not something that one should take on thinking you can just do the bare minimum, but it's something that would require some effort, but it's absolutely a very rewarding experience if you do set those deadlines and you meet those deadlines. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Jason. I give you example, like I'm working for General Electric as North Asia and China risk director. I just talked to Jason before this call. In past 4 weeks, I was working more than 10 hours every day, lots of conference calls across the globally. But we have our third module assignment deadline this Friday. So like what Jason said, I mean, time management is very important. And also James mentioned in the previous session, we probably need to, you know, dedicate like minimum 6 to 8 hours to this course every week. So my personal recommendation would be like either we pick up like 1 to 2 hours per day, I mean during the weekday, or we'd better give like, you know, 1 full day during the weekend, try to have the minimal commitment for this course. But that is doable with great time management, as well as, I mean, it's rewardable, it's worth of it. This is one of the best course in the world.
Thank you both. Thank you very much. Next question that's come in, perhaps James, you might like to take this one. What sort of professional backgrounds and roles have current and previous students come from?
Okay, I'll give some specific examples as to answer this, and I think you'll see how that fits with what I tried to emphasize, which is the idea that you have to have an interest in English language assessment, but it may well be diverse. We have current university lecturers working in linguistics, but we also have current university lecturers working in other disciplines, but with large numbers of international students, so interested in engaging with English language assessment. We have English teachers who are either working privately or working with organisations. We have specialist English teachers, so we have one who's working specifically with lawyers and is looking at how assessment for them can be specialised and can be developed. We have assessors working for IELTS, working for Cambridge University Press and Assessment in a distance, in a way, because they're working, assessing and working with these exams. And we also have assessors working in specialist fields, such as assessors working in assessing English for professionals working in medicine, so the English assessment for nurses and doctors. So there's a few examples. All of them have an interest in education, assessment, and language in some form. Oh, lastly, we have one person working in translation. So I think that gives a sense of it. But if you look at those three words, English, language, assessment, and if at least two of them fit with your professional field now, and one of them is an aspect you'd want to develop, that could perhaps be a crude way of approaching, is this degree right for me? So it's a span of people across professions relating to education and relating to language and relating to assessment.
Thank you, James. We've got a question that's come in about the dissertation. The question is, how does it work in terms of finding a supervisor for the dissertation, and what sort of expertise might be available to support the dissertation?
Thank you. It's a good question, because we're going through this process with this year group where we're just approaching it. So the specific process in January, which will be, this previous course started in January, by the way. So I'm going to say early in the second year. Early in the second year, you will submit a short dissertation proposal that will have come out of conversations with me and seminar sessions online to discuss what a dissertation could be, what would be a good way forward. From that proposal, you will have further advice over the early spring, and we may start to allocate dissertation supervisors. Dissertation supervisors can come from across the partnership. They could potentially come from within the Institute of Continuing Education, if there's a great focus on practitioner research. They could potentially come from Cambridge Language Sciences. They could potentially come from Cambridge University Press and Assessment. At the end of the first term, you will submit a lengthy proposal, and that proposal will be the moment where we finally commit to a supervisor for you. For the second two terms, you will work with your supervisor, 5 hours of support, plus the 2-hour tutorials you have with me can focus on the supervision as well. So you effectively have 5 hours with your supervisors and 2 further academic supervisions across the year. And that supervisor, they may be chosen because of a methodological expertise that fits closely with you, or the theme and the research questions of your dissertation, but they will have the expertise to guide you through.
Thank you. A couple more questions have come in. One is, I've had a break since I was last involved directly in formal study. So what type of support might be available to help me?
I'm going to answer this, but I'm going to suggest we perhaps bring in Lena again, because I know from working with Lena that she did have somewhat of a break. So I'll answer it from the practical end, but perhaps if Lena, you want to say something about what it felt like to come back from study and how you managed it. There's a lot of support available. As I said, not only is there the residential, but there are monthly seminars where you work with your group. There's the support of the community of students you're in. There's the 2 tutorials per year with me, but the option of extra meetings if these are needed for any reason. There's the pastoral support from the university, from the college, your college tutor. There's your supervisor in your second year, and there's also a large network of further support in terms of study skills events that the colleges lead, in terms of study skills resources and events that the Institute of Continuing Education runs. One of the things that it's worth saying is, to go right back to that first slide, the Institute of Continuing Education has been running degrees, part-time degrees for professionals for over 150 years. So the structure of support from your academic tutor, your pastoral tutor, your thesis supervisor, the online events that happen monthly, the resources placed on our VLE, on our website on our module sites for you, and the student community should give you the support needed to feel that you can return to study. The other thing to say is it's very likely that other students are in the same boat. We run degrees for professionals, and professionals have significant gaps between moments of degree level study. So you won't be the only person on this course who's returning to study after some time. I'll just bring in Lena though to see the student perspective on what it's like to have actually done it.
And thanks, James. As a student, we do receive lots of support from school, like what James mentioned. Apart from the 2 weeks residual courses every year, we also have lots of opportunities to travel back to university and use the library and gym facilities. I give you some example. This week, my another classmate, Rory, he's traveling from York to Cambridge and stay in the camp and try to do our assignment in the library. And every assignment, he will travel back to stay in the university, in the college, to stay about 2 weeks and do the assignment in there. And for me, I give you one more example is during the summertime, my daughter had her summer school in Cambridge. So I took her back. So while she was in her own camp, I had the opportunity to back to the Hometown College and stayed in Hometown College about 20 days. And during the 20 days, there were lots of language-related conferences in the education department. And our course director, James, introduced me to some of those conferences, and which was a great opportunity for me to networking to some other scholars, as well as to understand and acquire more knowledge about the language assessment. So there are lots of resources in the university. Also, English is my secondary language. I was a little bit concerning about my writing, so I talked to my personal tutor. My personal tutor, introduced some writing courses for me, which is for free, as well as he introduced some other writing tutor for me, like if you would like to write some introduction and you would like to give that to me, and I would like to help you to have a quick review. So we do have lots of great support from university.
Thank you, Lena. That's wonderful. We've got time for one final quick question. And perhaps James and Nick and Henrietta, you might want to think about this. It's just basically, are there any suggested books or texts that students or applicants who are interested in this course might consider going away and reading, before maybe even submitting an application?
Henrietta or Nick, would you like to come in first? If not, I'm very happy to give an answer.
Yeah,
Okay.
Why don't you start, James, and then
Okay, I'll give 2 answers to that. One, I'm going to recommend a very, very specific book which is classroom-based research by Keith Tabor. And it's just a really nice book into researching your own working space. And it's a simple and easy read from our reading list. And it's always, in terms of the practitioner research, the first one we recommend. But I'm also going to say this. I think one of the things that makes Cambridge students is a willingness to search out and discover reading. Now, you're working with two of the most famous research bodies in the world as part of this this degree, Cambridge Language Sciences and Cambridge University Press and Assessment. If you go on their website, they'll direct you to their most recent publications, to journals, to blogs, to things like this. You'll also find names of the people who are working on this course and what they have written. So what I'd say, I know people like a single specific book, and I'm really happy to type that in a second and send a reference to it. But I'd also say what makes a Cambridge student is a willingness to research and to find out for themselves. So go and type in Cambridge University Press and Assessment, go and type in Cambridge Language Sciences, find what we're working on, because we're very proud of it and we're the world leaders in this. So I think my answer is start with the website of the partners of this degree and explore. Henriette, do you want to come in with any further thoughts or comments?
Yeah, I think that's very good advice, of course. It also, so just about the more theoretical part of this course that James referred to in the first few modules. If you're worried about that, I think one good place to start is always there's quite a few handbooks on language acquisition, second language acquisition, that are out there on the market. And they are a very good place to get some, well-researched, but at the same time, relatively introductory texts. So I think if that's where you're a bit hesitant because it's not necessarily your background, that's a good place to start. But I think overall for the more linguistic side, you will see that a lot of it has been published in journals. And again, the Language Sciences website is not a bad place to start there.
Excellent. Nick, was there anything you wanted to add from a press and assessment perspective?
Yes, just to say that James is absolutely right that the website will be a good guide. It'll also give you access to the resources that are freely available, like research notes. They are all there. You can search through them and you can see work that's been done over decades now, actually. The other thing I was just going to point out was that it's not necessarily the case, but if you have an inkling of an area of assessment that you're interested in, as Henriette has said as well, you could look at journals like Language Testing and Language Assessment Quarterly and other journals in that area, because often they do have open access articles and they might give you a kind of idea of that sort of area that you're interested in. So yeah, read if you have an area that you're interested in or you might be interested in, I would suggest find some of the resources you can get to and have a look and read through and see how you feel about it, basically.
Wonderful, thank you. Could I have the next slide, please? So I think that brings us to the end of today's session on the MST in English Language Assessment. We very much hope that it has been of interest and use. We look forward to hearing from you and to hopefully receiving applications from you. So just remains to say, on behalf of James, Nick and Henrietta and our student reps, thank you very much for joining us today.